Welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. It's your host, your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Joe Bonnie, and I help those with endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome reduce chronic pain, eliminate stress, and minimize irregular or heavy periods. Y'all, today we got a certified trauma-based coach coming through to just really vibe with us in the Good Vibe studio. But you already know. Before we dive into this episode, vibe with me, y'all. Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. Yo, Syreeta, welcome to the Good Vibe studio, baby.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Wow, it's an absolute pleasure. Go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are.
Yes, my name is Syreeta Irick. As you stated, I am now a certified trauma-based coach. But what I want to do is take that trauma that we have in our lives and turn that thing into treasure. So I do that by extracting the lessons so that people can learn them, and then they can turn that into power, position, and treasure.
I love it. I love it. So how do you define trauma, Syreeta? And what are some common misconceptions about trauma?
Trauma can be any event that when you're in it, you may not even understand that, what's happening to you. It could have a long and lasting effect. But what happens is it can be a trauma from losing a job, right? It can be trauma from a loss of a loved one. It can be trauma from, hearing some heartbreaking or being in the midst of some heartbreaking thing. Yesterday is a great example of like national trauma when we just heard about or saw on Friday how the young lady was beaten by her, the one that she loved. And that is trauma. So although we didn't experience, we looked at it. I have two daughters. I literally was in that woman's position because she was getting beat down by the one that was supposed to love her. So that is trauma. So we might experience it ourselves. Yeah, we may experience it ourselves, or we may see it, and that actually triggers something in us, which now has trauma. Now it has a trauma response.
I got you. I didn't watch the video. It's just not like something that I would even want to hit play on. And honestly, I think it's been, and since we're talking trauma, and we can even go on social media because that's probably exactly where you saw that video.
On accident. Like I clicked on it and was like, what is happening here? And then I see this and I'm like, what is happening here? And now I'm all weekend thinking about this because I have two daughters, 28 and 30. So of course, as a mom, I'm in that position. So yeah, terrible.
I don't like social media for that very reason. A lot of times people are very triggered, like very much so triggered when it comes to social media, and people don't even realize it. They're just reposting and posting and putting things out there, not even aware of what this could actually do to someone's mental and emotional state, what could actually trigger them, and things in areas that they're still trying to cope with. So like I have this, I guess, bittersweet relationship with social media. I believe that social media is supportive when it comes to visibility for your brand, when it comes to business. It could also kind of let you know what's going on around the world and put you in front of different people, different communities. You can learn a lot from social media, but it's just a whole bunch of toxic trauma, other things that come on social media that I'm just not even for. So I try to minimize my social media exposure just because of that. And I hope that you have been able today to really sit with some of those triggering moments and the fact that you were so overly emotionally stimulated by that video, just to kind of take some time with yourself, because you absolutely deserve that after viewing something so traumatic. But can you share your personal journey and how it led you to becoming a brand new certified trauma-based coach?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And just to kind of piggyback off what you said, I completely agree. social media, if used as a tool, it can be very productive. But if used as something that kind of jars you and triggers you and put you in that trauma state, is definitely not what we need to be absorbing every day or taking in every day. So much so that my 16-year-old son, I had to kind of remove that out of his life, because the problem is that they began to get traumatized from young, and then they don't even realize that it's really changing their brain. So I just wanted to piggyback off that. How I kind of got started in this journey was some experiences that I've had, right? As a young woman, as a young child, let me start there. Both my mother and my father were drug addicts. Um, and so that, in and of itself is a traumatic experience, but you don't realize it. It's just your mom and dad went from normal to what's going on. I don't understand this. And then I, got older and went to school and was in foster care, and wound up ended up becoming a teen mom at the age of 17, not even graduating high school. Literally walked across the stage with my daughter on my hip because I was a teen mom, right? And then 2 years later, it what it did was it started a cycle within me to think that, I started searching for love and all of those things, and doing that, it didn't work out with her father. So now I'm, moving on to the next. I'm with, my youngest daughter's father, and I have a daughter when I'm 19. So 17, 19, I'm a mother. I'm still a child, but I'm somebody's mom. So now we got to survive this thing.
Somebody's.
Somebody's mother. And now my job is to protect and to keep them alive. And then right when I thought we were getting it right, her father was sentenced to 12 and a half to 25 years in prison for murder. So the cycle of the single mom continued. And then I went on to live what I thought was a better life, a prosperous life, and did some self work or self reflection. Like, this, it can't be everybody else. This is me. It's got to be me. So then I find the love of my life, and we were married 4 years, and then we had our beautiful son. And then we were married all together for about 7 years, and he died of a heart attack at the age of 41. So um we don't I didn't look at all of that as trauma. I'm thinking, like, people die, right? It's the cycle of life. People die, things happen, but ultimately that changed who I was. Every time something happened, it molded me into a person that was angry at times, that wasn't the best person at times, and had to go through all of those things, and lose friendships and gain friendships that weren't serving me, and do all of those things before I can get to the point to say, like, I got to do something differently. Like, this is what I'm doing now, and it's not serving me. It's not working for me. So now at my big old age of 47, I am doing something different. And it took me to realize that all of those experiences couldn't have happened for no reason. And now my locus of control is, my reality is that I can control certain things in my life. The locus of control is not everybody else. It's not, I can't blame the system. I can't blame the world. I can't blame my parents, because they were only doing what they knew to do, right? So I can now take that locus of control and do something to not only help myself, but help somebody else. So that's why I became a certified trauma coach, so that I can take all of these experiences. And even though my experiences might not be the same as somebody else's, we can realize and recognize patterns in those things, because that's what I had to do, realize the patterns and get the lessons from them, and then make a change.
I like that. I like it. I kind of want to take it back just a second. You talked about how you did some reflection and you had to realize that you kind of needed to heal yourself. What did that look like for you? Like, what was the signs? What was that moment? How did that come about, to say, you know what? I've been going through life so fast, and I've just had all of these different roles: mom, wife, widow. When did it become like, what did that moment look like for you that said, you know what, this is trauma and you need to start healing?
Yep. It looked like getting into relationships. After my husband died, he died in 2012. So he's been gone for 23 sometime the 13 years. My math is not always good, but about 13 years now. And it looked like me not realizing that I was angry at the fact that he was gone. And you would think, like, how could you be angry at someone who, if they could, they would be here? But I was angry not only at him, I was angry at my father. I was angry at everyone. So what it looked like to me was, it was more of a self-sabotage. I would get into relationships and hold on to these relationships that were not serving me, that were downright snatching away or stripping away from my soul, from my purpose, and making me less than. So the very last relationship that I was in, I had a traumatic, very traumatic experience. And I'll go into detail with you on a side note, because I have daughters, and certain things, like, I just can't. It's
Completely
just like
understand.
seeing a video, right? Um, so when I went through that, I sat with a friend of mine, and he said to me, he said, Syreeta, he literally said to me, like, you didn't even say anything about this. I had to probe and ask what was going on with you. And then when you tell me it's such a traumatic experience, and you're just like moving on with life. So he said, you need to get back into church. You need some therapy. You need something, because you just kind of like let it go. And it wasn't that I was letting it go. I was holding it here. I was holding it here. Physically, you couldn't see it on my face because I'm smiling. But my friend who sat there and saw my eyes and looked at me when I was like reliving this story, and then the pain coming back, he's like, listen, you got to do this. So what it looked like for me is, originally I was looking at a lot of podcasts such as this one, trying to, get my mind right. Like, what do I do? And then I made a decision, because before it was like, okay, I can't get therapy because I'm on this waiting list, or, my insurance. It was when I made the decision that I had to do this for myself, that it was just no way around it. I went and got the therapy that I needed. I went and took the time off for myself. I went and, created a safe space for me, which means that I have a safe space for everyone I love. So that's what it looked like. It looked like reading a lot of books. It looked like, only having people in my circle that, either I'm, pouring into them, or they're pouring into me, but nobody's just stripping away anymore.
On that note, Syreeta, I want you to say something about the people that might be on the fence about considering to do therapy. People might have told them, just like your friend, I love you. You need to go get into a space to really start becoming more aware of what you've gone through, start processing that and figuring out how to love you despite all of those things, and how to move through it instead of just suppress it. So I want you just to speak to someone that may be listening right now that not quite sure therapy is for them. They might think therapy should just kind of come as they want it to come, as like a go. Speak on the importance of therapy and what your life could have looked like had you not gone to therapy.
So one, I'm gonna just start off by saying, we have a mechanic for our car. We have a doctor for our physical. We, we have, maintenance for the things that we need for our home. We take care of things that we find are important. The one thing that we don't take care of is our mind. A lot of times we don't realize that we have so many things going on in our mind. It's like a ball of yarn, right? It may only have a few colors, but you let that thing get mashed up and it's all over the place. So what a therapist did for me is allow me to untangle those balls of yarns. It allowed me to then like say, okay, this is you, and have a sense of balance, spiritual balance, intellectual balance, social balance, physical balance. It allowed me to balance my life in a way that it made sense now to me. It was those aha moments in therapy that, and I'm an avid one for finding the one that's specific for you, because every therapist is not for you. There's one for you, but everyone is not. Just like every mechanic is not for your car. There's one for you. But what she helped me do is to really take that ball of yarn that was all mangled up, all over the place, every emotion, everything that was like, just all over the place, and unravel it piece by piece, and allow me to then say, okay, this is here. This is what I need to do with this. This is why I'm experiencing mom guilt in this area. This is why I allowed this relationship in this area. This is why, I did this to myself in this area. So when I was able to do that, I understood and recognized that if I did not do this therapy, it was going to be more of the same. It was going to be more of those relationships that would not only not serve me, but get worse. And what that would do to not only me, and what really, really drove it home is, how we love our children. So the thought of that thing affecting them in a way really got me to, like, it was like, okay, I love me, but I love my kids. Right. So it really got me to the point like, no, Syreeta, you got to do something different. And that's, that ultimately is how I, transition and got to this point. And so
I love
grateful.
that
It was
you
crazy.
talked about like bringing like the thought process of your kids too. Like you kept it all about you, and then you thought about what does this look like for my children? If I continue with this unprocessed trauma, and
Mm-hmm.
this unhealed version of myself? And I think that's a big thing, because a lot of times children are looking at their parents and
Mm-hmm.
seeing how they navigate life, whether they are saying, okay, I'm definitely not going to go this route, or oh, my mama doing it, so I can do this too. And it's like
Yep.
this role model figure, because there's no cheat code and to parenting. You're just doing the best that you can, or that you hope that you're doing, in regards to those human beings that you've created, until
Yes.
they can just start making their own decisions when it comes to life. But I love that you said that, because kids are watching. And if
Mm-hmm.
you value therapy, if you value healing, if you value loving you, it's only but so much that your kids are going to have to not have to want for, because they've
Mm-hmm.
seen that there's a value in this household, there's a value in this family for loving you, and to getting the healing that you need to be the best you that you can, because life is going to life. And so
Yep.
I like that you brought that into the mix. But thank you for like just painting that picture of what it would look like, to not get the help, to process that trauma. Can you
Mm-hmm.
just kind of break down just a little bit some daily practices that people could start incorporating to begin healing from trauma? So they might
Mm-hmm.
be looking on that wait list like you talked about, or wrapping their mind around it. But today, if they're
Mm-hmm.
listening to this episode today and they're like, okay, Syreeta, what do I need to do now? What are some ways I can start showing up in my life to start dealing and healing from trauma? What do those practices look like to you, Syreeta?
That is a phenomenal question. That is a great question, like honestly, because that was a question that I was asking myself often during those times. Like, what do I do now? What it looked like for me, like I said, it was a lot of reading, a lot of books that I had to read, a lot of podcasts. But one thing that I can say, if you had none of that, you have you, right? So now I wake up in the morning, and there is, I started listening to this thing called Mind Valley and investing in me. The crazy part about me not getting in therapy, that my children, I made sure they were in therapy, right? They got it. I didn't. So what I had to really start doing is practicing loving me. Practicing every morning. In the morning, I wake up with gratitude. I wake up with, the fact that I'm grateful for being here. When I brush my teeth in the morning, I say, I love you. I love you. I continue to say that because there is obviously something that was not loving me enough to get the help that I needed. And then I do some sort of movement. Like I have to, either I'll take a walk. Like today I took a walk because on Saturday I worked out a little bit much and my calves were killing me. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take a walk today, and that's what I did. Got in some nature and took that walk. But it really is sitting with yourself for about 20 minutes, 20 minutes, gratitude, listening, then saying how you love yourself, and then getting active, moving around, but being intentional about treating yourself how you treat the ones you love, like being very intentional about that, because that's what we forget. Like we do all of this for everyone else, we do it for our parents, we do it for our kids, we do it for everyone that we love, but the way that we should be able to show them love is how we also show ourselves love. I remember my daughter telling me, Mom, it doesn't look like you've ever been through nothing. Like it's everything seems easy to you. And that was a disservice to her. That was a true disservice to her, to think that everything was easy. Sometimes we think that we don't want to show our children the path to get out of things and the path to not to struggle and figure things out. Us not showing them that shows them that they only see the end result. They only see what it looks like in a pretty bow and package. So now I let them see, like, hey, mom is struggling on this, but it's going to be okay because I'm working through this in this way. I'm figuring it out on this way. So they can see it. My daughter's 28 and told me that. It really broke my heart because it was like, yo, they never seen me struggle because I didn't let them. But the struggle was for sure real. I was a teen mom. So the struggle of not eating to make sure they ate was real. The struggle of taking not one, but two from home on a bus, SEPTA bus, to daycare, hour ride, and then getting on that bus again, going to a job that, paid barely, and then getting off work and going to pick them up and then going back home. They never seen they thought it was fun because I made it fun. Like, oh, let's hop on the bus. Let's go to daycare. Let's do, like, they needed to see that was a time where I had to figure it out no matter what. Because that's what when we don't allow our children to see those struggles, they think, how am I going to figure this out on my own? I didn't arm them. And I really did for sure my daughter's a disservice. I'm a little more vigilant about letting my son see, a lot more vigilant about letting my son see the struggles and see where it is that I'm, mom's hurting right now. Mom's disappointed. Mom has feelings. Mom is a human being. But for sure, taking that time for yourself, telling yourself you love you, working in those moments of gratitude, getting moving around, doing those things, for sure. I have to do that every single day.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Syreeta. It was two things that came to mind while you were sharing that. One, sometimes it's good that we, especially for Black boys, we really give them the real and the raw when it comes to just who you are as a female, who you are as a mom, and just that struggle of life. Because life isn't easy, especially for not a Black boy in America, let alone Black women. And so I'm just grateful that you've reached this stage in your life to where you've been able to process what all has been happening to you and be comfortable enough to be able to be vulnerable for your kids to know the real. And so that goes into the second part of something that came to my mind was because you were so adamant about making sure your daughters saw the good part of life and felt the good vibes of life. Do you feel like that is what world you just focused on, and that's the reason why it took so long for you to actually truly just focus on you, because you were so caught up with, I'm a mom and I want my kids to feel good, live this good life. I want them to have everything I didn't have because I had to go in the foster care system. My parents were drug addicts. Like, I'm so caught up on, we're riding the bus, we're going here, we're doing this. Are you good? I love you. Everything all right? Did that kind of get you into this space where I'm so in motherhood that I forgot about Syreetahood? Do you feel like that played a part in it, or?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The fact that I would do, like you said, try to provide a life that in my mind wasn't my true reality, but I created this reality for this unrealistic reality for my kids, because like you said, there were still struggles, there were still things that I had to do, there were still things that I was working through, but I just kind of negated all of that. Let me put that to the side, because I got to be these babies' mom. I got to take care of them. I got to make sure that they're eating. I got to make sure that they're growing. I got to make sure that they're thriving. I got to make sure that they don't live the life that Syreeta lived, that they're not in foster home. So all of those things, none of that mattered. So it took me so long. Like, I am 47 now. I had my first daughter when I was 17. So it took 30 years to even longer than that, because my first trauma thing was when I was 12 years old. So before the kids even came about, I was 12. So it took 35 years for me to get it. Like, you got to now take some time and take care of you before you can put. I think Maya Angelou said it's an Afro-American proverb, and she says, beware of the beware of the naked man that offers you their shirt. I was the naked woman giving my shirt to my children, to my parents, to my friends. I was giving great advice to my friends. I was being that person for everyone else, but Syreeta wasn't showing up for her. She was not being authentic. She was not getting the help that she needed. She was not doing the work on herself. She was not even loving herself. But she masked that by showing everyone else love. So yes, absolutely. Having those, yes.
Syreeta, talk to the moms right now, because you just hit a special point where you're putting everybody else first and as a priority before you put yourself. Talk to the moms real quick on, or just anybody, it can be even the single fathers right now. Talk to the single parents about what it looks like if you do not put yourself first. Do the healing that you need for you, take care of you, what that really looks like, even the opposite and vice versa. Make sense? If you don't put yourself first, this is what it looks like. If you do put yourself first, this is what it could look like. Break that down for me, please.
So one of the things I will say is, take care of your children's mother. Take care of your friend's friends. Take care of your sister's sibling. You have to take care of you first. When we're on a plane, they tell us, when you're listening to that safety protocol, you sit in the seat. They say, if the mask drops down, you put the mask on yourself first, right? And then you help everyone else. You help the baby. The problem is that I was putting the mask on everyone else. So I was losing oxygen. It was showing up in various ways that it was just like, oh, it's okay. This bad relationship, I'll get over it. I'll find, it'll be fine. But it was showing up to me in those ways because I was showing up for my kids barely breathing. I was barely breathing. But because I wanted to make sure that they were good, it didn't matter about me. But the problem with that is that at some point, it shows up in their life in the way that it showed up in yours. What it looks like is they're not taking the time for themselves. What it looks like is them not doing the things that they need to do for them. They're not they have, it's like a sense of apathy. They're just kind of breezing through life, because we're all just kind of floating through life, not really living our full potential, not really going to get the things that we want. My daughters, I love them dearly. When I say I will lay down my life for both of them, all three of my children, they don't know how to survive life. They don't know how to survive life. Every little thing is a big thing. Everything that we would consider like, a flat tire, they were giving cars, given apartments, given everything provided for them. So they don't know how to get it themselves. That is a disservice to them. When I didn't take care of me and show them, ouch, this hurt, or I have to do this to me, they don't know how to survive. They're now 30, learning, because mom is like, she's cutting off, like she's saying, hey, this is the line. I'm going to help you as much as I can, but this is what you have to do for you. Mom can't do it no more. And when I didn't take care of me and I only focused on them, it stripped them of the ability to learn skills of life themselves. My son's 16. He just started cooking full course meals, right?
Come
My
on,
daughters
son.
didn't do that. Yeah, he's phenomenal in the kitchen. I just took some haddock out. He's gonna go down there and make it work, make a sauce with it and all. My daughters didn't know how to do that. Disservice. Disservice.
Come on, Syreeta. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I think you really painted the picture. And I could feel it and I could see it. And a lot of times people like to say, the kids these days, and I work with students all the time, and I always hear people like, the kids these days, children aren't the same. And it kind of makes me think it's not all on them though. No. It's not all on them. It's not all on them. Kids get to make their own choices. So some of it is on them. Like, they do have some part of accountability, but it definitely plays a part when it comes to the parenting and the household and the beliefs and the morals and the values and the expectations. All of that play a part in whether someone gets the necessary life skills, whether they're able to truly grasp real life, to be able to survive and be able to maximize opportunities when they come. So I think you did a great job with that question. And I appreciate you for being real, being vulnerable, and just showing what it looks like, even for your kids, because you might not have gotten it right with the first two, but you're doing such a better job with that third one. And it's because you started putting you first. You started healing. You started processing the trauma, and you started loving you like you've never loved yourself before. And absolutely. So I hope you feel good about the you that you're becoming and evolving into. So because you're getting to this point and you've gotten to this point in the process, you clearly had to have some type of resilience. So can you suggest just a few strategies for building resilience, especially for those who feel emotionally overwhelmed by their circumstances or situations that have happened to them?
I used to just pride myself on resiliency. And that's why when I show up, nobody knew the turmoil that I was going through. What I do realize though is, in resiliency, you still have to have some place where you can lay the armor down. Some place where, today wasn't a good day. Some place where you can say those things. Some place where you can be vulnerable, because vulnerability allows for you to really truly be resilient. Not just pretend like, oh, that didn't happen, it's over. Like, oh, this man did this, I'm just going to find another. Like, true resiliency is being able to say, that hurt. Sitting with it, understanding and taking the lessons, like, and not, and when I talk about that locus of control, not blaming that person. Understanding who you were and who you had to be to allow this person to be in your space, in your sphere. The same vigor that we would go through and say, no, baby, that's not what you want to do, to your child, your daughter. You can see certain things in people. You stop really doing that for yourself. So the resiliency is really in not just showing up like you got it all together. It really is finding that safe place. Sometimes we have to encourage ourselves. Sometimes we have to write it down and say, what take yourself out of it for a second and say, if this was somebody I love, what would I tell this person? My best friend is a psychologist, and she tries not to psychologize me, and I know that's not the proper term, but she does sometimes, right? And what she said to me one day, she said, take you out of this for a second. And she said, Syreeta, she said, if I told you what you just told me, what would you tell me? That hit me it hit me so deep. It hit me so deep. I literally I was like, yo, I see what you did there. But I had to
I've done
recognize
the
that
same thing before. I've done it before with a friend. Like, she was going in and she was just like, but I just don't even know. And I was like, but you're a good friend, right? And I was like, you know what? Hold on. You're a social worker. And you're about to get in a space where you're going to be helping kids. If a child brought this problem to you, put this scenario in a whole nother situation. What would you do then?
Yeah.
I don't even know. What would you do? Okay, you want the life coach in me? Let's go for it. And I laid it out. She was like, oh, that was good. That was real good. And I was like, it's so much easier if you just simplify it and take yourself out of it.
Take yourself out of it.
People complicate things that are truly very simple.
Yeah.
And you don't realize how simple it is because you just won't take yourself out of it. And most of the time it's the emotions and it's the belief about yourself that is hard for you to take out, minimize, and pull back just to get to the facts of the matter, to be able to simplify the situation and address it that way. And that's why so many times we say easier said than done.
Yeah.
It is.
It is.
But it can be done, right?
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to, that it can be done. So I don't know. I just thought that was good.
Sometimes we can't see the saying is you can't see the picture for the frame, right? You're in it. So you're lock, stock, and barrel. Like you said, you have your emotions in it, you have all your feelings, and you have all the little trinkets, all the gooey feelings inside. But sometimes you have to like strip all of that away and say, if I didn't have these feelings, and if I love the person, which is you, enough, and you just kind of move all the other junk out of it, because that's what it is. It really is. And I just told my son today, I said, sometimes your feelings can be noise. It's just noise. Sometimes you really got to get down to what the feeling is saying to you and take yourself out of it and say, what would you say to somebody that you love? And that's my journey right now, is I got to be the somebody I love so that I can truly love the people I love. Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? Because we've been told from, like, I don't know where it got in our head where the kids are before you. You got to take care of the children and everything else before you, especially as Black women and women in general. Right now, I'm not going to just take it to Black women. I'm going to say, especially as women in general.
But that's just who we have the most what do you call it? Experience with,
right? We've been told, we've been told to be that for everyone else. But what about you? How do you continue to show up if your cup is dry? Where are you pouring from then? You got to put something back in. Someone said, and I can't remember, I hate not giving credit where credit is due. But it's like taking your debit card and putting it in the ATM, and you're trying to withdraw, you're withdrawing, you're giving everything away, but then you go back to withdraw for you and there's nothing left. So now you're in a deficit. So now you can't help anybody else, and you can't help
Stand
you.
up yourself,
What do you
right?
what do you do? What do you do in those situations? So yeah, you gotta find somewhere to be vulnerable enough to lay those hats down, be vulnerable enough to talk through those situations, be vulnerable enough to say, ouch, that hurt, but I'm not gonna let that keep me where I'm at. I'm gonna do the work. I'm gonna show up every day, but I'm gonna do the work because that's the part that's needed.
I got you. I love it. Please do the work. You're worth
Please do the work.
doing the work. But speaking of work, Syreeta, you told me that you used to work at an OBGYN office,
I
and
did.
I told you that I had stage 4 endometriosis back in March 2020, adenomyosis on the left side of my pelvic area,
Mm-hmm.
polycystic ovary syndrome. A few months prior to that surgery, irregular periods, facial hair. So definitely hormonal imbalances, kind of check the boxes. But and two small fibroids they found in my uterus that they took out during that excision surgery. And you said, Giovanni, I used to work at the OBGYN office, and I used to
Mm-hmm.
see patients coming in with painful periods and having endometriosis. And you talked about the pain level. Can
Mm-hmm.
you just describe being in that doctor's office, seeing what's happening to these people with high pain issues? Talk about what you've seen in regards to endometriosis patients.
So, and this was about I guess about 20 years ago, one of those jobs I had to catch the bus to, but I would see um young women come in, and they would be in so much pain, so much, during those cycle times. And they would, initially it was just like, okay, we need to just get you to surgery and, do all of the things. Like, it was no transition. The sad part about it is when it was, and I don't know how much you want me to delve into like the opioid stuff, but the sad part about it is they would be prescribed something when that time came to take the pain away, to do something, and it would help for a minute, but it didn't get rid of the problem. It just caused another issue. And
And that
those
other
women
issue
were,
looked like, what was that other issue? Addiction.
it looked like addiction.
Mm,
It looked like addiction. It looked like, and it when I tell you the transition was so swift,
mm,
because you go from one day you're taking the pain meds, and it's like, you know you're taking it, supposed to be taking it every 3 hours or whatever. You're taking it as prescribed, and then you come back, because back then they would titrate up instead of saying, okay, let me wean you off. So they would titrate the amount up and then say take it the same. And it's like, no. But what would happen is, right, and I've seen it with my own eyes. I didn't know what I was looking at. I just thought, the doctors, they got to know what they're doing. They went to school for this. But what I would see is, I would see the women come in, they would get their pills, and then 2 weeks later, sometimes 2 weeks later, they would now be calling, I need my pain meds.
mm.
The transition was so, like, it was scary, but I didn't even understand it fully until it
So
was
do you
just like,
think that's the reason why when we go into the emergency room and we're saying we're in so much pain, they're not ready to believe us. They're not ready to provide a solution. They're not ready to dig a little
yes,
deeper to really figure out what's going on, because there was this opioid.
yes.
Um, but that's the problem,
Mm-hmm.
because they prescribe the opioids, but at the end of the day, we're the ones that's truly living in the pain. So why not find other pain management modalities
Mm-hmm.
to support people with chronic pain issues?
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. The problem is, back then it was all good, because we would have the reps come in, we would have beautiful lunches, we would have all nice trinkets around the office. I'm sure the doctors went on plenty of trips. I'm not saying what I ain't saying. I don't know. But it was a lot of motivation behind prescribing back then. And it wasn't until what it looked like is like I gotta share this. There was a nurse that worked in the office that I worked in. She was a nurse practitioner. I'm sorry, a nurse practitioner, and she worked there. I want to say 6 months, 7 months, something like that. She lost her life from, and she self-prescribed whatever it was. She self-prescribed, and she was young. She was about maybe, I guess where I am now, maybe third, maybe 40 or a little, they age a little different. She was not, an African American woman. So I don't know exactly what her age was, but she lost her life. And she would often complain about, endometriosis and things like that. And that was kind of the reason behind it. Can't sleep at night, can't, like can't do the things that you would be able to do normally. She would complain about, but she would show up every day. And then one day she didn't.
Mm. Thank you
One day
for
she
sharing
didn't.
that, Syreeta. So this is what came to mind for me. Um, what advice do you have for women dealing with chronic pain,
Mm,
and the emotional toll it takes on their life? What advice would you give them as a trauma based coach, as someone who has seen people in debilitating pain, someone who knows pain is real and knows that
mhm,
opioids isn't the solution? What advice would you give people when trying to deal with the emotional symptoms
mm.
and the emotional toll it takes of being in consistent chronic pain?
Chronic pain. One thing I would say is really look at the role you can play. I would not just give all of my power, all of your locus of control to the doctors. They know some, but they don't know everything. And only you live with you on a daily basis. You know what you're taking in, what kind of stresses you have. I would say take some form of control as much as you can on your own. Do some research, look up other ways, find that specialist, find your sister friends that, or look and see, hey, this person had endometriosis, but now they're living a healthy life. What did you do? How did you get there? What helped you? Really, really take that time, because what we do is, and we've been taught to trust our doctors and everything that they say do, because they went to school for forever to learn how to do this. But what the doctors don't know is, when you're home and you're eating, certain things, he's not there when you're eating all the things that you're not supposed to. He's not there. He's only there to treat the symptoms, and he's also there to keep you a patient. So take some level of control for yourself. Um, find those one offs that, how did you get to the point where you're not having that pain anymore? How did you get out of this? I shared with you before we, when we did the pre interview, I shared with you, I didn't even realize that me and my daughters may have PCOS, facial hairs, irregular periods. My daughters have so much pain during their periods that it is that they have to pre-take pampering.
Mm.
They were taking pampering beforehand before that time came because it was so painful.
And
Now
we
we're
clearly know
having
that's
those.
not normal.
That's not normal. That's not normal. So now I had a discussion after you and I spoke with my daughter, 28 years old. And I said to her, hey, I just had a discussion about PCOS. My oldest daughter she was diagnosed with PCOS, and I this was like a new thing to me. I had no idea what this thing PCOS was. And even when she said it, was like, oh, okay, like, well, what do you have to do? And she did all the things that she had to do. But in all reality, we all probably had it. It was genetic. We all, she got it from her mama. I probably got it from my mom. And now when we had that discussion and I said, hey, what are you eating? What are you taking in? Like, what, like, take, my daughter loves cheese. We know dairy products don't love us. So, and
Not at all.
I talked to her about that, and she's like, yeah, she just, it's crazy how knowledge and wisdom comes around. And she was like, Mom, I just heard that. And I was like, yeah. I said, you have to be intentional about it. So now we're having that discussion.
And because you're having that discussion and you brought it into conversation, we're going to go into the next question. If you hadn't already, get your anti-inflammatory guide that's in the link description of this video. Click on the link, download your free anti-inflammatory guide, because it's all in there. Things dealing with mindset, dealing with mindful eating and movement, because it's the M to the third degree healing empowerment formula, and it's allowed me to reduce my chronic pain tremendously. Have a great sense of a vibrant life, and then moving and finding the absolute favorite things to move and groove throughout life to keep that healing process moving forward. So if you haven't got it already, go ahead and download your free guide, and make sure you get it to Syreeta.
Oh, I'm getting it.
Well, as well. So I wanted to ask, because we kind of talked about this before, but we were talking about the role that diet and lifestyle plays in managing both your physical and your emotional symptoms. And we talked about trauma of clients. So I think you told me about a case study in regards to it. Can you tell me, like, kind of bringing in that case study, but also give me your own insight? What role does diet and lifestyle play in managing both your physical and emotional symptoms of trauma?
It plays a huge role. What we don't realize is that, we look at people and say they're masking it with drugs, they're masking it with shopping, but we don't look like as food as a vice as well. Food is a vice. It truly is. And the case study that you're speaking of, it was a 47-year-old woman who 4 years prior to coming into this psychotherapist was violently raped, and she was gagged, bound. She had, no sense of power. She was powerless. At the time of her assault, she was 145 pounds, I want to say. And I don't have the data in front of me, so it might be off by a couple of pounds. I just want to say that. But then when she finally went to the psychotherapist, she was now 300 and say about 330 pounds. And the psychotherapist made sure to note that she was on a lot of different respiratory medications, because she was strength, like she was held, like she couldn't breathe. So all of these medications dealt with her trying to breathe again. But the trauma is gone, you would think, but the trauma was still there. So now she's eating and she's taking all these medications, and she's, going to the doctor, and they don't know what's wrong. But trauma has a way of showing up in ways that we cannot imagine. So if we don't take care of ourselves, take care of our bodies, get the proper nutrients, get the proper foods, it will literally take us out of here. Um, I briefly also shared about my husband, who was 41 when he died. Um, he lost his father, who he absolutely loved. Um, but he died of a heart attack. How? He had diabetes from the age of, I want to say, 30, and he would not do anything like for it. He would just, oh, this is just kind of, and he ended up having like diabetes, and it was attacking all of his organs, just bit by bit. But his mother, this is the power of diet. His mother, who of course is twice his age, she was also diagnosed with diabetes. But what she did was she went to a nutritionist, and she went from taking insulin to not taking anything at all because she changed her diet. So the thing that took my husband out of here, actually it was the opposite, but it she preserved her life by changing her diet.
And I'm glad that you spoke on that and you showed it, and it was so close knit, like it's a mom and a son, and it was just a simple decision, like
Simple
just a
decision.
simple decision in moving forward in a certain direction that you chose, that you thought was best for you or what you felt comfortable doing. And it's a choice sometimes that separates life from death, and
Yes.
it's as simple as just deciding what it is that you're planning to eat, as well as what it is you plan to think about, your feelings, your beliefs, in regards to your life, and what you value out of it, as well as just how you want to move in a certain direction. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's just powerful. So I'm glad that you shared that, because I know it's not easy sharing that, because you know that your husband loved you. He loved your
Mm-hmm.
kids. He loved his son. And of course, he would probably want to be here for him. But it was that simple decision not to do the things that could have potentially preserved his life a little bit longer. And so it
Mm-hmm.
is the power of healthy habits and lifestyle changes. And we talked a little bit about that too, Syreeta. You talked about habit stacking
Mm.
and and doing, because you talked about books before, and you didn't really tell me like the books that you would recommend anyone to tap into,
Yeah.
as they go along in their healing journey. But talk a little bit about your process of being able to create habits in your own life
Mm.
that
That
are
is
healthy.
so good. That is so good. That is so good. That is so good. That's a great question. So one of the books that I read over and over again was Atomic Habits. Um, I can't think of the author. I'll give it to you a
I feel
little.
like it's
It's in
like
my phone.
James Clear. I don't know
Yeah,
why, but
or
I
yeah.
feel like
I think you're right. So Atomic Habits. What that did was it's about creating environments that allow you to give you the healthiest options. We often think, okay, I'm going to eat right, I'm going to do all of the things, but I would buy fruit and leave it in the little crisper in the refrigerator, and the fruit would go bad. Everything, I was throwing away fruit by the boatload, wondering why, like, what is going on here? Yeah, I was
I've done
throwing
the
it away by
same
the
too.
boatload.
Like, why I didn't just eat that before it went bad? Now I'm throwing all this
Why?
thing all over the way. I've been there too.
So in that book, they talk about positioning, like creating an environment to consume the right thing. And they talked about, it was a cafeteria that initially, they had all the sodas at the cap-ins, and they had like, desserts at the cap-ins and all of that. So instead of having the desserts there, they had, I think it was either water or apple. I can't remember which, but they had that at the cap-in. So what that did for everyone is it increased the number of consumption of water by about 40%. That's huge. So what I
Big.
did was, my little fruit thing, little pretty fruit thing, was off in the corner somewhere, because I like everything streamlined. I don't want any clutter. I actually brought that out and made it a focal point in the kitchen. So just hearing that was like, oh, so now I'm going to share. I'm going to show you this, because this is what I was going to be eating while all of this stuff. I now have a bowl where it's like, my son even said to me, "Oh, this makes it way easier to eat a banana, like a banana." Because it's right there. He can grab and go. Like it's on the island before you head out the door. So if you get a little hungry, you can literally grab and go. And that has changed our fruit intake. I now have, instead of having the bottles of water, we now have our own personal, well, you know how we got these from the show. I buy the gallons now. So we pour a bunch of water into our own personal bottles. This is our personal bottle. So it's ours. So now it's like my son has one and now he's taking in more water. It's not those half uh 1,001 half drink bottles all over the house anymore. He now drinks more water because he has this jug that is just for you, and when it gets to the bottom you fill it up, and every time it gets low you get more. So it really is a matter of making things easier, have stacking those habits and doing those things. And you said something, and I have to kind of go back to it. Even not just with the fruit, it was also when I brush my teeth in the morning, telling myself I love me, I love you. Like in Atomic Habits, it was like doing those things. You know, we need to work out. So if you don't try to fit those things in your everyday life, so if you have a call, it's like in between calls, do a couple sit-ups. You know, take a walk after lunch. Instead of getting that hamburger and you know you're gonna feel like trash after, find a help. Like literally, we feel like we know we're gonna be tired. I know I'm gonna be tired. We eat certain things and in the middle of the day, and it changes how the day goes. You're a morning person only, but then around 12 o'clock you're not because of what you've consumed. But it really, like all of those things. So Atomic Habit was definitely one of those things that changed how I did things. Yeah, that was one of the books. And 10x is easier. That's what we all were reading. 10x is easier than 2x. And one of those things is taking those things that you're good at, magnifying those, figuring that out. And that's kind of how I came up with this. The thing that I'm good at is the one thing that always like sits kind of close to my heart is when people are going through trauma. I feel it here. I feel it. Like I literally can sit here and talk to someone to try to, figure out a way to give them a better solution in their life when I know they've gone through something. And all the words come out nice.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Like, pretty much, what advice would you give someone just beginning their healing journey from trauma? Like, and how do you allow their trauma to be a source of motivation
Ooh,
to have an
that's a good
amazing
question.
life? Because since it sits right here, how do
It's
you
right
now
here.
take that trauma that they're going through,
Hmm.
and allow them to use that as motivation to live an amazing life? Because a lot of times when people experience that trauma, or that trauma has been stored inside for so long,
Hmm.
it's not, more than likely it's not, I want to go live an amazing life. It's the total
Hmm.
opposite.
It's the
It's
total
the
opposite. Yep.
absolute total opposite. And it's not just a thought that happens one time, it's several times. And even you're probably saying it out loud. And it's like, how, Syreeta, trauma based coach, certified, how are you taking these clients and potential clients, and you're taking these traumatic situations and allowing them to be transformed into what I think
Mm.
you call treasure, in order for them to go and live an amazing life?
Oh my goodness, that is a phenomenal question. It really is. One way is figuring out, first we gotta dive in and figure out where it all began, where it stemmed from, because we'll look at today's situation and say, oh, I stubbed my toe or I did this today, and that's the trauma. Sometimes it's deeply embedded, so we got to look back at that, find the patterns of it, find how it shows up for us. Like I said, I feel it here because when I experienced it, it would all be here, right? When I feel it here now, it is more illuminated. It's not a dark, deep, like secret that I'm holding on to. It is now, I can now help. Like I have the tools to help you get through. One of the tools is really diving into where that trauma began. How does it show up in you? Does it show up in you wanting to fight? Does it show up in you wanting to run away? Because all of those kind of affect your body. They do. They affect your body. We cannot physically stay in fight or flight mode for long periods of time. But that's what we do when we have unresolved trauma. We stay in those fight or flight, those actions all the time. And you hear the word triggered and you think that it just no, it really is. It could be the wind blowing the wrong way today. It could be somebody saying something, like they didn't speak directly to you, and now they've triggered a part of you that has already been in that fight or flight mode. We cannot remain in that fight or flight mode. So what we have to do is really figure out how, when we go through these patterns of trauma, or when these patterns of trauma show up, what does it look like for you? For me, I'm a fighter. So it was anger, it was all the things, right? So I had to recognize in those moments where I felt helpless, felt disrespected, felt anything outside of those, I'm ready to rumble. So if that's my trauma response, now I have to say, anytime I'm feeling those type of reactionary vibes, or how they call it today, or the way, if it's showing up in me now, I now have the opportunity to say, okay, this happened, but is this a problem that required that level of reaction? And sometimes we have to really tell ourselves the correct story, because we've been telling ourselves lies so long.
I
So we
love
have
that
to
part.
tell
Telling
ourselves the
yourself
correct
the
story.
correct story. Mm.
Yeah. And what that allows us to do is, now it gives us an opportunity to say, okay, I was about to exude that energy into this thing that really didn't deserve it. I didn't, tore the head off of the waitress at the restaurant because you brought me the wrong order, because I felt disrespected. You didn't hear me when I said no, or extra onions, or no bacon. You didn't hear me when I said that. So you're disrespecting me. So now I done tore your head off. So now that energy that we exude in those areas, because there's a nice way to, if somebody's, doing something, handle those situations according to what it is. I heard Jason Williams say, and he was talking about being a lamb and a lion. Wilson say, he was talking about being a lamb and a lion. And he worded it so perfectly. What he said was, you can have those bad experience at the restaurant, and this is just one example, and say, hey, I want to have a great experience here today. Can you please send me a waiter or waitress that's going to allow me to have the experience that I deserve, instead of biting their head off? Now, when they come back, he said, when they came back to the thing, they're now overly helpful. Oh, they get their experiences way better. So you not only get the treasure of experiencing life in a way better lens, you're also now, you can now help the people that you come in contact with and not hurt them. And this is not only because if you hold all that in, you can hurt your family.
And not only that, we're holding it all in. I also believe that when you hold in stored trauma within your body, it starts showing up in chronic dis-ease. It could be fibroids, it could be PCOS, it could be cysts, it could be a plethora of things that's going on in your body, because this energy, because you're made up of energy, this stored energy inside of your body is now it needs to do something, because you're not allowing it to go anywhere. And so it's going to start doing a whole bunch of stuff in your body. And it's just going to be like, okay, how do I handle this? How do I address it? And you're so focused on what the ailment looks like, what the dis-ease looks like in your body, that you're not even focused on, I need to process, and I need to truly embrace. Come on. Embrace.
Embrace. I see you. I love it.
Embrace. Yes. What you really went through, and start the process of truly navigating through that, so you can heal, and so you can go through life truly feeling. And you were right with the analogy with how you bite people's head off and you just get real short tempered. And I kind of try to tell that to my kids, because, you know, as young children or young adults, I don't know what age range you give it, but even when it comes to middle school and in high school, you kind of have to tell people, why do you think they're saying the things that they're saying? Why do you feel like they're doing the things that they're doing? They clearly have gone through some things. They have stuff that they need to heal from. It really has nothing to do with you,
Nothing to do
because
with
they
you.
don't even know you. And I always start off with that question, do they know you?
Mm.
No, they really don't know me. So then why would they say even matters? That is a deflection or something that they actually have gone through that they need to heal on themselves. It's not up to you to address it the way you think you should address it because you're feeling disrespected. It's up to you to allow them to the space to do what it is that they need to do for them and not get involved with it if you don't have the power to truly help them through what it is that you're helping them through. So I thank you for like walking me through that treasure of a moment,
Mm-hmm.
because there is, and I like that you said treasure, that trauma into treasure. It's not just catchy, but there's truly treasure in you, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
get to that if the trauma is overwhelmingly exacerbated all over that treasure chest, because we can't even
Mm-hmm.
get to the real you that the world absolutely needs to see, feel, believe in, and get that purpose out of your life from, because
Yep.
the trauma is just covering it all
Mm-hmm.
up. I got
Yep.
two last questions for you, Syreeta, and
Okay.
I'm gonna
All
let you go. So
right.
I want you to give some insight or some tips or some suggestions to the male role models, the girl dads that are raising young girls, and or you can also put in the mix males who have female partners that may or
Mm.
may not be exhibiting symptoms of polycystic ovary syndrome, facial hair, irregular periods, possibly fertility issues, as well as that chronic pain, because we know that pain is not normal.
Mm-hmm.
Painful periods. How do we bring men into this conversation in order to be aware and to be supportive? What insight would
Mm.
you give
That's a great question. Well, our male counterparts, they have a level of what they have to go through in the world. But what I will say is, by allowing them to see you, what I've done in the past, which is not always healthy, is that GYN appointment is a GY my GYN appointment, or that those trips to the doctors is what I have to deal with. Sometimes we have to invite them in order for them to be those, be able to help us through those times. And that's as an adult. Now, if we're talking about a male role model and they're dealing with, their teenager and they're going through it, it's asking questions. It's finding out. It's once again, we have to take the reins of just handing this over to the doctor, or somebody, let somebody else do it, is the term of this century now. Sometimes you can't let somebody else take over the care of the ones that we care about. Sometimes we have to really get involved and say, hey, what did you say is going on? Oh, okay. Let me research that. Let me look that up. Let me see what that looks like, and see how we can better, so how I can better serve you, because they're not going through it. They don't really understand the magnitude of it. All they know is that their teenager or their daughter or whoever their loved one is going through this pain. But allowing them to asking questions, for sure, asking questions, um you know really hearing what they're saying, and then listening actively. We got to put our active listening ears on, because you may have, we sometimes when we don't actively listen, we hear, oh, they just have, period cramps, but we didn't hear when it began. Oh, it began
them?
when this happened, or not only this, it's happening, like, I ate breakfast this morning. Right after breakfast, I was feeling terrible. And then, what did you eat for breakfast? What did you have? How did, okay, do you notice that when you're having this specific thing, it, exacerbates me? I'm like, didn't think about it like that. But now just asking those questions, because sometimes, we have to ask those questions of ourselves, like, what was I doing that, or how did I, get to this point? And sometimes when we ask those questions or have someone ask us those questions, it really it triggers us to make us really figure out it started here. It allows us to kind of trace the origin back to the culprit, whatever it is, be it food or be it stress, be it whatever it is. And then we need to now, okay, if it's food, this is what we need to change. If it's stress, let's do some mindful breathing. Let's do, some activity. Let's get some movement. Let's go outside and get some air. Let's not be sedentary. Let's move around. Let's, get some activity to our body. So I would definitely, ask or give permission, because sometimes they just, well, we don't know. Give permission to our male counterparts to ask questions, not in a probing way, but in a way that you're actively listening, so that, whoever you're talking to, be it your daughter or your significant other, when you're asking those questions, it kind of say, oh, I didn't even think of that. And now you guys can break down how to best serve and treat whatever it is.
And not only serve and treat, but also just be mindful. Just
Yes.
be mindful of that, because like if you're in debilitating pain one day and you all had date night planned, date night might not go the way you wanted it to go, and they might feel bad about it, but they're in pain. How do you now get creative enough to say, this is what we're going to do instead, in order for you to be supported within what it is that you're doing, So I'm glad you hit on that. You were hitting diet, and then you hit that stress. I was like, come on, trauma-based talk. I knew he was going to get to it, because sometimes it's what you eat, but it's also what you're thinking about and what you're not dealing with. And a lot of times, like you said before, people can stay in fight or flight mode. And when you're on go,
that's
go,
dangerous.
go, when you're on go, 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 you don't even pick up on the fact that you might have been triggered by an event that occurred, because you're so used to just going.
Yeah.
Until your body says something totally different, and then it's just like, okay. So let's think about some of the turning events. What do you think possibly have triggered this type of reaction for your body to respond the way it did, since you were, on autopilot mode and didn't even think a response was even necessary, due to that suppressing of the stress. So I appreciate that. So last question.
Okay.
If you could have a meal with any historical figure, who would it be, and what would you all eat?
I'm going to say Jesus.
Okay, talk to me. What you and Jesus eat?
What me and Jesus eating? So I'm gonna have to be a little, bad. I love a good steak.
You being bad with Jesus?
He knows my heart. But anyway,
and does.
So we're eating. We're gonna eat the fruits and vegetables and all of the things, but we're gonna have that steak that's not gonna take hold of my body like that. It's gonna be like that, magic thing that I can say, okay, I can just throw away that, and only taste, because I'm with the Lord. I'm with the Lord. If anyone can do it, he can do it. Because won't he do it? Won't he do it? I know, I'm sorry. I know. We're gonna have the fruits and vegetables too. But
is that what y'all want, or did y'all just want the steak?
You gotta
be real. You sit at the table.
I gotta be real. So I love a good cabbage. Okay. And so I outside of a good medium steak that I can just slice through and has a little fat on it, the ribeye that is cooked to perfection and seasoned well. I love Brussels sprouts and cabbage and things of that nature, and a nice fruit tray. So I do love those things, but for some reason that steak gets me every time. So, but I'm gonna talk to the Lord about it, because I can't eat it on a regular. So I'm a carnivore let me not say that. I'm no longer owning that. But I love to eat meat as my normal thing, and I haven't been able to do that as much. I've been eating more fish, and the last time we talked, I think I was, I had an egg omelet, and I was like, yeah, I wasn't feeling too well after. So I'm listening more to my body. So if I'm with Jesus, I'm going to eat all the things. I am. If I'm with the Lord and Jesus, Lord and Savior, who is the healer of my soul and body, I am going to have that steak and ask Him to heal me. Yeah.
All right. Sounds like a breaking bread and steak with the Lord it is. I'm all for it. All right, Syreeta, let them know where they can find you. How can they connect with you?
Yes, so I am on social media, Instagram Queen_Syreeta, Syreeta. I am also on all other social media platforms, just Syreeta Irick. Um, but they can find me there. I will be in the near future launching a book, Mum's the Word. I will be launching some things in the near future, just getting the logistics out the way. So when I do, I'll definitely let you know. But they can definitely find me under Queen_Syreeta on Instagram, and then Syreeta Irick on all other social media platforms.
Well, thank you, Syreeta, for coming through. Congratulations, trauma-based coach, freshly certified, but was
Especially
already qualified through life itself, helping people turn their trauma into treasure. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the Empowered Place, Empowered Lives podcast. Y'all, if you have not grabbed your anti-inflammatory guide, make sure you get it out of the description of this video, as well as if you're looking for a healthy habits and lifestyle coach and it resonates you that you really want to focus on your mindset, mindful eating and movement as a way to really holistically heal, reduce chronic pain, eliminate stress, and minimize those irregular or heavy periods, click the other link in the description of this video, and connect with me and see how I could help you on your healing journey. Everything that we talked about today are the things that we've experienced on our own healing journey. We're not saying it's going to work for you. We're just empowering you to be intentional about your own healing journey and figure out what it is that is going to support you to be successful, to get to the best you, because you deserve it. So make sure you click on that link. Let me know how I can help you. And then if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell so you never miss a video or a live stream or podcast episode that drops. And if you're listening to our beautiful voices on a podcast distribution platform, please support the podcast by rating the podcast and following us and listening and tuning in to more. And we just hope it continues to empower your life. It's been another amazing episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. Y'all go get your embrace on and keep vibing, y'all. Thanks for vibing with me.